You're listening to the Interconnect Hub podcast, powered by DataGryd. DataGryd is a premier data center provider located in the iconic 60 Hudson Street building. To learn more, visit www.datagryd.com. Enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome back to the Interconnect Hub. This is Doug Foresta. With me today is Joe Reele, Vice President, Datacenter Solution Architects at Schneider Electric, and of course, Tom Brown, President and CEO of DataGryd. Tom, Joe, welcome.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. Looking forward to it. Very much so. Thanks for having me.
So, Joe, thanks so much for joining today. If you could, just for our listeners, if you can just give a quick overview of who you are, your role within Schneider Electric, and some of the things that you guys have been up to.
Sure. Well, thank you for that, Tom, and excited to be here and part of this podcast. So for me, I guess I would say a little bit of a weirdo, if you will. I've grown up and done nothing in my life other than mission-critical facilities. Starting way back when I was 18 years old, I ended up into the United States Air Force nuclear program with the Minuteman III nuclear missile. And from there, my career has progressed all through mission critical in the telco world, working with Siemens and making sure all of the central offices were up and functioning from a building automation perspective. I was a robotical engineer a little bit up in Essex Junction, Vermont, and all the way to Bank of America, where I was lucky enough and quite frankly honored to be able to serve as Senior Vice President, Engineering Executive over about 55 million square feet of data center space. And we were responsible for the design, the operation, risk management, compliance management for large financial institution. And now for the last 7 years at Schneider Electric, and we think of my team really as an extension of and the right hand sort of person to our sales executives across all three of our channels, our strategic accounts organization, our national sales organization, and our channels organization. And really, we ran the business external. We bring ideas in business development, strategical discussion, anything from certainly the CapEx side of the equation all the way through OpEx, and then just brainstorming on what is the future and how we do that. And what's really exciting, Tom, is that taking all of that, one of our roles, which I find incredibly rewarding, is that we bring all of this market information back from our clients into Schneider Electric, and we kind of feed that into our line of businesses. And so future products, future software, and future services are all really baked into, our products really from market feedback. And myself and my team are really instrumental part of that equation, and which is why I think, Schneider Electric really does care about the total life cycle, if you will. It's not just a hardware purchase. We really care about not only how are you going to put it in, but how is it going to enable your business to make better profits, maybe new adjacent revenue streams or whatever the case may be, all the way through. And most important, I think, is maintaining your risk appetite. And that's kind of what I do at Schneider Electric.
No, so Joe, I really appreciate that. And first and foremost, thanks so much for your service. We at DataGryd appreciate all servicemen and women that served our country. So thanks again. But really, really refreshing to hear some of the things that you guys are doing, and evolving is so critical. And we see that at DataGryd as well. But most recently, you just put some thoughts out via blog, and really wanted to kind of get that market insight that we are amongst a transformation in our business. And we believe here at DataGryd that we're well positioned, and we're looking forward to partnering with Schneider Electric to be part of a solution. So for our audience, Joe, if you could just talk a little bit about some of the insights that you see and how it's impacting our business with the emerging technologies and the deployment of edge data centers, because I think we play really well into that. But just for our audience, we want to provide them with some of your market intelligence and certainly your insight.
Sure. Well, thanks for that. I think, I'm an old industry veteran, Tom, you are as well. And if we listen back maybe 10 years ago, gosh, if it wasn't a centralized cloud thing and it wasn't the great big huge data, there was never going to be another data center in the entire world unless it was massive, right? And this is what they were saying, right? And you know what? Here it is. Look, there's a place for that centralized cloud, and it's critical to the future and what we're doing, but it's really, really come down to, and and this is for almost everyone too, by the way. It's a hybrid environment, really is, and more today, and I think it's going to continue to become more hybrid. Whereas the centralized cloud plays a certain role, but really, what's really the fabric, I think, that stitches all of this technology together. I'm going to say it in this way. Everybody's heard of digitization. Everybody's heard of globalization. Everybody's heard of socialization and social media and so on and so forth. And everybody's certainly heard of mobilization with mobility and tablets and phones and all of those types of things. And look, there is a market, there is a segment that stitches literally all of that together.
Couldn't agree.
And that is what will, and the role of a DataGryd as an interconnect, as a place where I would say efficiencies are born and created, whereby I can do a lot of things in a DataGryd interconnect or a regional co-location, regional edge is maybe what some people refer to, that I could ever do if I was out at a tower or if I was out at an individual endpoint. Whereas if and this is something interesting, Tom, people don't always think about this. If you are sitting next to me and provider A, mobility, and I am provider B, and we're sitting right next to one another, you send me a text, Tom, that text doesn't go just 5 feet. That text actually, that piece of data goes almost 2,000 miles.
That's right.
Okay, and that, when you think about what is the future, could we really live in a world where that is that inefficient? And the answer is no, we really can't. And so this talk about edge, right? This talk about bringing things closer, enabling use cases, and all this other type of stuff, it all comes down to, frankly, the speed and the efficiency of the data path, the network path, the communication. How is it working? How is it getting from point A to point B, and how quickly can we get it there? And
right.
and it's really interesting that we're starting to see, almost everybody embrace a hybrid environment. And what do I mean by that? Tom, I'm sure that businesses that come to your clients, there is a snap to, there is a business reason they probably connect to a centralized cloud for something and come back to you, right? So this thing of it's one or the other, no, it is not one or the other. Frankly, it's mostly a hybrid environment to include, believe it or not, there's going to be local presence, a local edge. There's going to be a local IT kit in most all places. And by the way, our homes are becoming like this as well.
Of course.
Okay? So, and so what we're starting to see, Tom, and you guys are playing right smack in the middle of this thing, is that there is a revolution coming where IT kits were once in data centers. Now most everything is starting to look like a data center. And the efficiency of that is coming back to the CNSP market, the DataGryds of the world, where all of this interconnection, all of this efficiency and traffic and getting to, quote unquote, the eyeballs, is very, very important, and everybody's realizing it. In fact, I would suggest that the hyperscalers are actually fueling growth into co-location and regional co-location, regional edge. and they are coming and taking space down in some of these places. It's edge related. It's probably not central cloud related. And so this is kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you make a really good point. And I bring it back to the simplest forms, right? And I have children that are 16, 14, and 8 years old. And it's all about instant gratification. And if I shared with them what actually takes place when they send that text and where it goes, they just want it to work, and they just want it to be sent to a friend who receives that very quickly, right? And it's all about instant gratification. And when you think about that, how do you gain those efficiencies, and how do you make that happen? And when you talk about the edge, there's a broad level of definitions regarding the edge and 5G and all of these key emerging technologies. But when you think about the edge in its simplest forms, and I'd like to get your feedback on that, it's really where the application meets the network aggregation point.
For sure.
What's your thoughts on that?
No, I think that's absolutely true. And I think that's really a great definition of it, because, at that point, it starts to, when people start to think about what you just said, man, the edge becomes, and edge is everywhere. And it's really developing. You said emerging technologies, and man, I couldn't agree more. The people talk a lot, Tom, about 5G. 5G this, 5G that, 5G the other thing. Okay, that's great. Awesome. But to me, that's a new network technology. I'm going to talk about something else, Wi-Fi 6.
Right.
And you're hearing that more and more and more. Tom, if I just said to you, hey, Tom, there's this new network technology. This is what it promises. It's lower latency, faster. It's increased bandwidth, more. And it's allowing a lot of IoT connections. You would say, oh, Joe, absolutely,
sign me up.
5G.
That's right.
Yeah, sign me up. And that's what I've been hearing 5G. But guess what? That's the value prop of Wi-Fi 6. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. Did you just tell me that Wi-Fi 6 basically has the same value prop of 5G? How come I just keep hearing about 5G? And the answer is, everybody, listen, there is network technologies that is coming out and emerging, and they all sound the same. There's a new technology called Li-Fi. L-I-F-I. Li-Fi. Not Wi-Fi. Li-Fi. Okay? And it is a technology that is similar to Wi-Fi, except it comes through light. Yeah, comes through light. Why this is important? Because think about it this way. Does Wi-Fi from your neighbor come into your space? The answer is yeah, it does. And if I'm sharing the same spectrum, are there possibilities where there's going to be some interference, where things won't work? And the answer is yeah. Well, Wi-Fi can't penetrate through, light doesn't go through walls. Think about that for a second. Think about what could happen now if all of a sudden a private network can really be private. Really be private. Think about the security implications. Think about all this other kind of stuff, right? There's a lot of things that are advancing in our networks, and it's not just 5G, okay? And something else to just bring up, I think it's also something that, I'd like for people to think about a little bit. Like, 4G really is made for consumers to look. What do I mean by that? Streaming, music, Netflix, etc. 5G is going to be built for businesses to do versus consumers to look. So what's in our hand right now is a 4G phone. And for the next couple of years, I would say, this is just my thought here, it's going to be okay. Yep. 4G is going to be just, for us, fine. Businesses are going to embrace 5G. And this is where I think, again, the data grids, the interconnects, the hubs become incredibly important. And I think that there's going to be a lot of businesses that are going to embrace technology to start to do things in a way that haven't been done before. And I think about modern things that are happening right now today, and a use case that would be incredibly beneficial and impactful. Okay? And think about what's happening with this new pandemic. Think about how neat it would be if doctors could diagnose remotely to prevent the spread of something contagious.
Right.
Hello, we're seeing a use case develop right in front of our eyes, actually. All right?
Right.
Of things that are coming.
And think about this too, right, Joe? It's going back to simplest terms of static versus dynamic, right? 4G is almost going to become static, right? It's one dimensional, as opposed to 5G being dynamic, and it's limitless, right? On how we're going to be able to interact and transact, right? Is really key to 5G. And speaking to a young adult, they can't comprehend that. Again, all they want is just a quick, positive, instant gratification. And keeping that in mind, it goes back to, well, where's that foundation? And that foundation is taking all of these applications back to a core, and that core are these aggregation points. And that's not going to change. That's one concept that's not going to change. And you're going to see the evolution of, you're going to need to continue to have glass, you're going to need to continue to have that various new emerging equipment to take that and bring it back to these aggregation points. So, I mean, listen, it's happening before our eyes, and how it's being impacted will be recognized a lot more down the next 5 years. But as you said earlier in our conversation, think about just as little as 10 years ago, right? And where we've come today. But that constant, and where we sit and where we can be a solution to Schneider Electric is being part of that solution and being part of that equation for the likes of a broad audience, not just a specific vertical. I mean, this is touching all verticals. So the example that you just had is, hey, how proactive we can address this very issue, as opposed to people being somewhat archaic and just saying, hey, I need to put on a mask, and God forbid I don't get this this virus.
Right. And I'll say something else, too, I think is really important for people to think about, probably in a way they haven't thought about it before. And this is, again, an incredible value prop for DataGryd and the market is this. And this is the first time in a long, long, long time. And then this is a weird Joe thought, but I'm just going to say it, right? You guys can comment, and I would love to hear your comments back. But we're at a time now. This is a time in history where something really impactful is happening, almost to the importance of refrigeration. Arguably, refrigeration changed the way humanity does things. Okay? We're at a point in time where that's happening for us right now. And I'm going to say it this way, Tom, and you guys do it very, very best here. Look, ask yourself the following question. Do we believe in more digitization? Do we believe in more IoTization? I just made that word up. Do you believe in more socialization, globalization, all this? And if you said yes to that, you would be right. More things are becoming more digital. More things are becoming more smart, if you will, or smarter. Okay. Guess what? Guess what, y'all? None of it works without the network. None of it works without the network. And think about this. We all know the impact that refrigeration has when it goes away. It's a pretty significant impact. We all know the impact of when electricity goes away. It's a pretty significant impact to quality of life. Guess what, y'all? The network is going to create a halt in business and in life going forward. Life support systems are tied to the network. Our supply chain in food, in logistics, is going to be tied to the network. Your home, your phone, all tied to the network. And if you think that the quality of life is not going to be impacted when the network goes down, you're really, really, really wrong. And guess what? Okay, the DataGryds of the world have been doing this for a long time. Reliability and uptime. And it's more important now than keeping a server up is keeping that network up. And the meet me rooms and the cross connects and everything else that DataGryd brings to value to their clients, okay, is going to be the core component that keeps the business alive going forward. Now, you might think that that's way out there, wacky thought, but I don't believe that it is. I believe in it very, very much. I believe that the network and electricity are going to be the two things that could grind the world to a grinding halt. And I'll say it this way. We could lose a war if our network goes down, right? that it's a significant impact that we have, and it's not been until very recently that this is starting to come up like this. So I think we're at a change, a point in time in history of mankind where we have something so impactful right in front of us, and I'm not sure we're looking at it that way. And I'd like for people to think and comment on that.
And I'll comment on that, Joe, and that's a really good point. A year ago, PTC 2019, I was asked one question. They said, Tom, what do you think will be most impactful in the next 5 years? I was sitting on a panel, and how you guys are positioned in the marketplace in a very critical place. Everybody knows 60 Hudson Street, arguably one of the most recognized addresses in our industry. And I said, I'm going to say it this way, power is paramount, because it's an aggregation point of networks that I don't run. I just provide the interconnection. But what I can provide is a unique power source that will enable these networks. And we are sitting on a valuable asset, and we need more of these types of aggregation points, particularly with these eyeballs, to address all of those izations that you just laid out. So really, really, really interesting perspective. Joe, we could actually talk all day about this because it's exciting, right? And no one really wants to, the normal individual really doesn't want to understand what it takes to make things happen. They just want it to happen, and they'll pay a really good premium for that. But that's our jobs. I certainly look forward to continue to work with you guys. Is there any other closing comments or insights, Joe, that you wanted to provide for our audience today?
You know, the only thing I would say is just two things. I'll give you a quick provocative thought, and just Tom and Doug, thank you so much for having us at Schneider Electric here. We really appreciate that. I'm going to leave you with a thought. Everybody talks about artificial intelligence, okay? And I think the human brain has been discredited along this path, by the way. And I'll just give you an example. So there's a supercomputer that plays AlphaGo. It does one thing. It plays a game. It consumes about 440,000 watts, and it does one thing. Meanwhile, sitting across from a human playing the game, and the human actually consumes about 20 watts of power, being able to play the game. But not only that, what we are able to do and what our brain is able to do is really, and we don't think of it in this term, but if I told you, Tom, that we actually freeze time, go back in time, and go forward in time as human beings, you would say, no, that's not true. But really, we do. And so if I said to you, Tom, hey, the mouse, your brain has just stopped time. It doesn't know whether I'm talking about an animal or a computer peripheral device. If I said to you, Tom, the mouse on the desk, you still have frozen time. You don't even know that you did it, but you did. You still don't know if I'm talking about an animal or a computer device. And then if I finish a sentence, say, is no longer paired to the computer, all of a sudden what your mind has done, you have froze time, you went back in time, you unfroze the thought, you brought it to the forefront, you actually went and did a time warp into the future a little bit and froze time again, and you were able to then understand that you were able to do that time with less than 1 millisecond, less than 20 watts of power. And so when people start talking about artificial intelligence, think about a bigger picture, y'all, about what it is and how it is, and really, are we really going to get to that point in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? We've been talking about 5G for 4 now. I just wanted to leave that thought. When everybody starts to think about artificial intelligence and all this other kind of stuff, think about our brain first, and think about some of the cool things that we do, and think about how much time, effort, and power it's going to require to do all this artificial thinking that we do naturally. And I'll leave you with that.
Joe, thank you so much. That was a great perspective and certainly great insight. To all of our audience, thanks for listening, and it's great to have a thought leader from the industry on the Interconnect Hub. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Interconnect Hub podcast powered by DataGryd. DataGryd is a premier data center provider located in the iconic 60 Hudson Street building. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you consume your audio. To learn more about DataGryd and the services they provide, visit www.datagryd.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.